Come on. Yeah. You ready, big girl?
Yeah, I'm ready, ToeJam.
Alright, let's do this.
Hello and welcome. It is Friday night. Well, Friday night for some of us, I would say. Friday afternoon for others, it seems. And it is the Next Level Gaming Show. Welcome, everybody. It is great to be here. We have such a great show for you tonight. I am looking so forward to this. We have a very special guest who is here to talk about his life in gaming and the great series that he put together and the game that he just released not a week ago. Mr. Greg Johnson from Humannature Studios, formerly also of ToeJam and Earl Productions, and formerly of a whole bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about. Greg, how are you?
Yo, what's up? I'm good. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Oh, thank you for being here. This is, I tweeted out earlier today that this is like a bucket list thing for me. This is just such a wonderful pleasure and an honor to have you here. We're looking forward to talking to you. I'm gonna see if, because I know you're on a phone. If I stop this is gonna bring probably back the Skype screen. So you can at least see the other guys as they're talking, and I'll guide you through as we go.
Sure. Yeah, that works.
So, and I have with me, as always, my buddy Peter. What's up, brother? Oh, you're muted. Hey, this time it's not me. It's usually me.
You saw my lips move, but you couldn't hear what I was saying. No, it's another great Friday with a great guest. I'm excited. It's great.
Awesome. And
nice.
And our friend Nial McCarthy, who is one of our he's one of our great guys that streams for us. He's done some excellent PS4 streams. I'm looking forward to doing more. How you doing, Nial?
Hi, Mike. How's everyone?
Everyone is good. Everyone is good. So, unfortunately, Chris couldn't be with us tonight. He had to go out with his family. You know, it is Friday night, and sometimes that happens. So, but it's okay. He'll be here in spirit.
I thought we were his family.
I know.
Oh, you hurt our feelings.
His wife and kids. They had to come. They had to take precedent. They took him. They took him to the movies tonight. So.
What a punishment.
Poor guy.
So, Greg, over here where we are, it's all dark, but behind you, it is very much daytime. Where are you?
I'm on Maui in Hawaii. It's where I live these days. I moved here about 4 months ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Nice. Maui is my favorite Hawaiian island. Love it.
Oh, have you been here?
I've been there many times, yeah. Not lately, though. Yeah. Ever since my daughter was born, I haven't been back, but love it.
Yeah, I'm living in a city called Lahaina, which is on the west side. Yeah. I love it, too. It's great. It's just so great. I don't know if you can see, here, there's the ocean is right there. I didn't want to go out there because I thought it might be too noisy, but my office is here. We've got 2 studios, one in North Berkeley, and then a little studio here now in Maui. And I'll let you see a little bit of this. Oh, this is the ocean. Yeah, isn't that great? It's whale season right now, and the whales are. It's funny. The whales are jumping, and our office looks out on the ocean, and those pesky whales keep interrupting our work because they keep leaping out of the water.
They keep
and
breaching.
then
That's awesome.
They're breaching all over the place.
If we catch a whale jumping out of the ocean on this show, I can retire. I can be done. That's it. So,
it could happen. Yeah. Actually, not that unlikely.
Yeah, we got a couple guys in the chat room already, and one of them who's a member of a great podcast called the Iron Lords, Lord Cognito. He said he's got to do his podcast for Maui now. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, come on out.
I got to introduce you to him. They are awesome and very much Sega guys too. And when I told him, he was one of the first guys I talked to when we were working on getting you on the show, and he flipped out. So. He's like me.
Great.
At one point I'm I'll tell you what's really funny. Of all people, even my wife. Now my wife's not much of a gamer anymore, but when I told her that we were having you on the show, and I said it's the guy who co-created ToeJam and Earl, even my wife said, "Oh my God, I played that game. I love that game." So
awesome!
It is
high five, wife.
Yeah,
wife of Michael.
It is one of the it's one of those franchises that seems to have transcended a lot. Tell us. Let's start here. Tell us how you got back to. This is where it's time to make a new ToeJam and Earl game. I mean, when this came out on Kickstarter, I was like, "Whoa, this came out of nowhere." How where did the inspiration come for it after all this time?
Well, it seems like it came out of nowhere because crowdfunding is very visible, to the fans. But I've been trying to get a new ToeJam and Earl game off the ground for decades. Like literally every few years, I've tried to pitch it to publishers, and I remember 2005. I pitched to Turner. There was the one in 2000, actually in 1999, that we did get off the ground. ToeJam and Earl 3, and then in 2007, I tried pitching a DS game that to a bunch of publishers, and so in 2014, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, it was after I had finished Doki Doki Universe, which was the first party title with Sony that I did. That came out in 2013. I wasn't sure, all the publishers had told me that they thought ToeJam and Earl was dead because I'd been trying to pitch it for years, and that's what I'd been hearing from everybody. And I just wasn't sure, you always think your own kids are the best looking. In fact, mine are. See what I mean? Yeah. So I thought, who wouldn't love ToeJam and Earl? But I also was a little skeptical because of what, the pessimism I'd heard from publishers and potential other funders. So I thought I was kind of on the fence about whether or not to do the crowdfunding. We had a lot of fun, friends and fans saying, hey, where is ToeJam and Earl? Because there was a lot of other retro games, at the time that were getting crowdfunded. And and then an article came out in what was it? I think it was in GameStop by Tom McShay that was titled "We Need a New ToeJam and Earl Game as Soon as Possible." Like at the moment, I was trying to decide should I, shouldn't I, and somebody pointed me at that article of Tom's, and that kind of tipped the scales. And so we said we'd try it as a litmus test and see if we could get over the bar. That meant there would be enough of a fan base that wanted it out there, and if we couldn't, well, then we'd know.
Right. And early indications. I mean, I've of course keep very close track of the Twitter feed. Which, by the way, you got to give that man a raise. Your Twitter feed's been on fire lately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have
that's two guys.
Oh,
Matt
is it?
And Nathan. They're doing a bang up job. Yeah.
And I have to tell them both thank you. I'm gonna look at the camera real quick. Thank you guys, because they helped. They really did help get me in touch with you. Nathan, I had emailed him 3 or 4 times, and finally he followed me with Twitter, and I was like, all right, that's my chance. And so I tweeted him. I said, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you, and he said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Send me another email to this address, and if you don't hear anything, I'll get involved. So, but
cool.
Between both of them, I thank them so much for getting to this point, because they really were a big help.
Yep.
And so apparently, at least, you know, from what we're seeing, the initial first off, the initial reviews on the game have been phenomenal. Seeing a 9.5 from Destructoid, and I've seen 9s across, you know, a lot of other places. So the review scores are great, and that's been a nice thing to see. And so, how are you guys doing sales wise? Everything to where you want it to be?
Yeah, it's doing good. I wouldn't say it's we're an absolute, you know, off the charts hit yet. It's still the jury's still kind of out. We're good and it's solid. The reviews are good, but it's still kind of early to know how we're going to do. And, you know, things always spike in the beginning. That's always the way it works. So there's always that fear that it's going to drop off, and you just don't know. So you guys are helping us get the word out and keep the energy up. So thank you for that.
That's my pleasure.
Appreciated. Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is it's not for. Oh, that's, yep. And actually, I'm showing footage of the third one. I meant to put on footage of Back in the Groove, because that's what we want to hit on.
Yeah, no, but that's really appropriate if you're going to talk about that one, and I'm more than happy to. You know, whatever you want to know. There's, you know, I'm sure you've heard some of the story about that one, but maybe
I have, and today can be a great set the record straight day for us. But let's talk about,
all right.
But let's talk about Back in the Groove first, because I really do. Playing it reminded me of what it was like to play the original on the Genesis, to be young again, to be honest with you, to remember what it was like. And then as we started to make our way through, we started to realize, hey, you incorporated elements of all three of the first three games into here. And then I just started to enjoy it more. So, you know, when you, I guess when you were deciding to design the game, this is your vision. So, you know, talk about, just real quick, what led you to do a sort of a remake like this rather than try to go in a different direction?
You know, I've been reading a lot of reviews and a lot of feedback. We've gotten a flood of it on this new game, and you know, it runs the whole gamut. And a lot of people get very down in the weeds, you know, in talking about game mechanics and why did you do this and why did you do that, and being sometimes being critical of this or that. The thing that's important to me in creating these games, in all of the ToeJam and Earl games, and especially this new one, is kind of a much higher level, almost a spiritual thing. Spiritual in the sense of, you know, laughing, smiling, bringing people together, making you feel good, making the whole vibe of kind of more relaxed pace, not taking life so seriously. The whole theme of the you know, the Earthlings and the satirical humor and the vibe of the characters and their relationships with each other, all of that stuff, right? All of that stuff is like, we can talk about mechanics, and I'm always happy to do that and talk about the choices that were made in the design. But in terms of the question you're asking me of sort of like why, where does it all come from? It comes from a very a higher level place of not so much head space, but more kind of heart space of just wanting to create something, some things that would make people's lives a little bit brighter and warmer and kind of more connected. Let them kind of let stress go for a little while and just connect with the people around them and be playful. You know, I think that's that's probably,
no, I understand that. And
does that make sense? Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it actually does. And it's what it was your original game. I mean, this is the look of ToeJam and Earl 1. You know, so it brings you back. Like I said, it brought me back to 1991, and if that's the feeling that you are trying to get across, it worked. It very, very much worked.
Yeah, you know, in regards to that in particular, a lot of what the impulse and motivation behind this game was specifically to take people back into their memories and into those connections that they already had with the game, and let them kind of reconnect with those joys and pleasures that they had. So that's why me originally, and then our team as a whole, wanted to make the game really feel like it doesn't look exactly like the first game. Obviously, look at that, you're walking across space.
Yeah, somehow. No, let me get past it. There was a glitch. There was a glitch
Okay.
when we were playing, and somehow I had to drop Chris and then bring him back in, and then he was okay. So there was something. Yeah. It was weird. First off, he ended up in level 0, which I was like, "Where is level 0?"
Yeah. Well, that's by intention. That is a secret place you found. But this game has been honestly kind of a nightmare to debug. I think we've gotten most of it, but it's this, as you know, ToeJam and Earl, it's a game of combinatorics, right? Everything combining with everything else.
Yes.
The whole idea behind the game is surprise. It's kind of like joyful surprise. You never know what's going to happen.
Right, and you can't. I know you're on a phone, so you can't see it, but I just got an achievement. As he was, Earl was. Let me go back a little bit. Earl was struck by Cupid, and so people know what happens. And I came up and slapped him in the face, and I got an achievement for it. so yeah, it was. I got the harsh love rare achievement. So,
nice.
Yeah, and so, and what was cool about it was as we were playing it, I noticed a lot of the similar tropes of the first one. Like in the level we're looking at here is the quicksand. You have to stay on the grass. But at the same time, we have the new element of here are the flowers, and that can keep the folks away from you. Especially that darn mailbox.
Right. Yeah, you're camouflaged. They think you're a sunflower, and that is a new element. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But a lot of the old elements that I looked at and was like, wow, they really brought back, the carrot of wisdom. They say that freaking mailbox. You got to nerf the mailbox a little bit. He hits you twice and you're out.
Yeah.
But that's what happened in the first one. In the first one too. That mailbox had no mercy whatsoever.
They do have a tell, though. If you stand there before you go up to a mailbox or before you get near it, their eyes will open and look around a little bit. So, if it takes a little bit of patience, or you can just avoid them altogether. That's usually what I do, unless I really need to buy presents. But yeah, they have a very short range too. Just FYI. So they're fast, but they can't go very far.
Okay.
So you can.
I'll keep in mind.
Yeah, keep that in mind. So. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot of elements drawn from, particularly from Game 1, but also Games 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. And we are simple creatures, like creatures of association, right? You hear a smell or you hear a sound, and it just takes you back to something in your memory. And that's kind of what was one of the goals for this game. Because so many people, especially when we started this Kickstarter, there was kind of an outpouring of testimonials from people about their childhood and things they remembered from the game, and people that they played it with, their brothers or sisters, or often parents or grandparents that even weren't around anymore. Some of the stories were really touching, and that made me and the team really want to be able to sort of take people back, to give them something that would let them reconnect with those memories and those feelings. So that's really why that was such a kind of guiding light for us in this design process. It was, trying to make it true to the original feelings of the game.
Well, and I'm glad that people took to it the way they did, because like I said, I'm one of those. I mean, I'm 45 years old. In 1991, you know, I was really hooked on the original game for a number of reasons. Number one, you know, in the era where, you know, where the multiplayer games were not quite as unique. You know, you had your, you know, Genesis had all these great sports games and things like that, and, you know, Sonic and games, and most platformers at the time were, you know, whether it was the Genesis or whether it was the Nintendo, it was player one, then player two, player one, then player two, and you kind of had to sit there while the other person played until he died. So when ToeJam and Earl came out, and all of a sudden, you could play simultaneously with your friend, and if you moved away from him, the screen split. That was that was just really, really cool, and that was something that my friends and I, you know, we played this probably a lot more than we played many other games, and it just worked out that way. And so as the series progressed, you know, at least until 3, keeping the multiplayer element gave me things to play with my friends.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that was what was kind of a central thing for you, and I hear that all the time. That really is the heart and core of ToeJam and Earl. You know, it's 2 characters in the name of the game. You know, it's, you know, a lot of people who pick it up for the first time will play it as a single-player experience. In fact, some of the reviews we've seen have been single. Pablo came out, and structurally, the 2 games are very similar. Obviously, they're both based on Rogue. So you're right, and you do kind of tend to play the same way in these cooperative roguelike games. In this one, too, you know, especially in this new one, we wanted to broaden that idea of cooperative play and freedom for people for how they played and who they played with. So we put a lot of effort into letting people drop out of the game or rejoin a game anytime they want, and join saved games. And you could start in a, you know, 1-player game and then have more people join and take it up to a 4-player game, and then have 2 people drop, and you could change your difficulty. We've got sort of general modes, right, where there's the intro mode and fixed mode and random mode and hard mode, but then you can also set the difficulty level for individual characters so that you can play with somebody who's not that proficient at video games and play in easy farty mode, which, as you might have noticed, gives you gas.
Yes.
Right? But it just generally tones everything down for that player. And then there's toddler mode. So if you've got a little kid that wants to hold the controller and play with you, they can join in and follow along, and they won't ever die, and they can teleport to where you are and have, you know, unlimited health presence and things like that. And they get to wear a little golden crown, you know. Anyway, so that was that's the idea. Is we wanted really to be able to bring the whole family in and let people drop in and out of the game as they wanted, and give people that freedom to play together.
And you said I may have been I may have not known this. This may have slipped me, but this is this is 4-player co-op.
Yeah, well, on the PC, it's 4-player co-op on anything. But it's only 4-player right now, 4-player local co-op on PC and Mac on Steam, and we couldn't quite get there. We were trying, and we might still be able to do that on console. Right now, it's 2-player local play on console, but you can play 4-player, up to 4 players online play on the consoles, and you can have 2 players local in one place, and then, you know, play 2-player local in another place online. So that's about as close as you can get right now. But we ran out of time. You know, it actually does work 4-player local, but our frame rate's a little too low, and we'd have to do more optimizing to make it really viable on the consoles. So we're hoping we can still do that.
Okay, we're gonna try that then, because I know there's quite a few. I know a few people that have it, and we're gonna get it for Peter, so that Peter can play with us. Right, Pete? We're gonna
awesome.
Get it.
Sounds good.
We're gonna get it, and we're gonna make it. We're gonna make this. It'll work great. So
yeah,
that's awesome. I honestly, that's the one thing about this I did not know. I thought it was only 2-player co-op. So that's excellent.
Yeah, give me a holler. I'll jump in and play with you too.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know if you know, you can type on your keyboard, hit the space bar and type, and then whatever you type will appear over the player's head. So within those online games, you have free chat. You can also use the shoulder buttons, and that'll give you a menu of things you can say to each other. Oh, another little tidbit, in that free chat wheel, the top thing that's there, the top phrase is, the one that's on the top of the wheel by default is over here, and if you select that, then you shout over here, and all the Earthlings will kind of clue into you, and they'll leave your buds alone. So it's a way of helping out your friends to like draw the Earthlings to you, like if your friend's life is really low or something.
Gotcha. That's a great tip.
That's neat.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah, it's really useful.
I'll have to remember that one.
We originally had that in the game where you would use the thumb controller and move it in a little bit of a circle to do the over here thing, but we found that as we were playing, especially when you'd get really excited because the Earthlings were closing in on you and you're pressing down too hard on the thumbstick, that's when you would do it by accident, right at the wrong time when you're trying to escape from the Earthlings, and you'd shout over here and they would just mob you. So we took it off of the thumbstick and put it into that menu wheel, which makes it a little more hidden, so people don't discover it quite as quickly, but it works better there once you know it's there.
Yeah, and that I'm gonna have to try that. That's a great feature.
Yeah.
I also like, by the way, that you brought the map static into the play screen. Because I would spend a lot of time on the map, and if you play the Sega Classics version online with somebody else, when you go to the map, they go to the map too, so they could be in the middle of something and you could screw them up by turning the map on.
Right. I think that caused so many fights between siblings. I didn't know. I heard so many people. So we had to fix that. By the way, did you know you hold the map button down, and your map, while you're holding the map button down, your map will stay big on the screen, but only on your section of the screen. It never takes over the other player's screen. So yeah, that was one of the separate map was one of the things that distinguished this game from game one. Well, I mean, among many, but sure. Also you can turn the map off too. You can toggle it if you tap the map button. Right. It'll turn the map off. Some players actually don't like to have it up while they're playing. I think most do. You can also turn off the UI. Some of our early Kickstarter backers asked to be able to shut that off. So in your options menu, you've got some modes where you can either turn it off or put it on. That's what we call dynamic mode, where it only turns on when there's a change or a reason for it to be on. So more details.
I'm writing all this stuff down.
Yeah.
I'm writing all this down because this is great. So I do want to get into some of the history of ToeJam and Earl, and how the game morphed into literally 3 different games and then back to the original. I've heard I've heard stories. So I'm in the late 90s through 2007, which is why I was I have something I wanted to show you before we during the show. I actually reviewed ToeJam and Earl 3. Next Level Gaming was a gaming website that I created after writing for a site called Dreamcast HQ. When Sega had to get out of the hardware business, I was like, well, I enjoyed writing about games so much, I could either stop doing it or try to keep going. So I created Next Level Gaming, and I actually, did game journalism for a good while. I was very tight with Sega, so they sent me a copy of ToeJam and Earl Mission to Earth, and that's the only ToeJam and Earl game I was ever able to review. I gave it an 83. I'm telling you, I am one of the few people that liked all three. And
I already knew I liked you. Okay, now I like you even better.
Because I understood, I kind of understood at the time that this was before I heard anything. I kind of figured that you wanted to go in a different direction just because, you had gone from kind of the 2D overhead to a flat out 2D side-scrolling adventure, and I figured, well, maybe you didn't like that and wanted to go to something else, but wanted to kind of get in on the 3D part of the world. So we go from the original ToeJam and Earl to Panic on Funkatron, and again, I enjoyed it because there were new elements. It was a new kind of game style, and I'm like, I can go back and I can play the first game as many times as I want because it's a random world. This is something new.
Look, we can just mail it. Oh, yeah. We can go mail it.
Yeah. Well, some of that is true. Do you want me to answer that kind of implicit question of?
You know where I was going, right?
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah. Well, so some of that was what I wanted it to be, and was by intention. And specifically, the 3D aspect of it was, we started that project. I think it was in '99. It might have even been in '98, and it released in 2002.
Right.
And those were the days when 3D was still kind of a new and exciting thing. The Xbox was kind of out, and the GameCube in those days, and I think it was PS1, and everybody was really taken with what you could do with 3D, and so we were, me and the team were genuinely excited to try to explore that and make a world as beautiful as we could, and make ToeJam and Earl and their new friend Letitia sort of come to life in 3D. So that was that was all genuine at the time. It was also, as I'm sure you've heard, we ended up having to change course pretty dramatically in terms of the general game design from what we had intended, because we, were approached by Sega, and they were concerned that the original game plan was going to be too old school, and they said, we don't want you to do stacked levels anymore, and we want bosses and locked elements and gates and keys and mini games and cinematic sequences and all that kind of stuff. And they told us that about 8 months before we were going to ship. We were close to being done with the game. This was we had built it for the Dreamcast. I'm sure you know, and and then we had to decide what platforms we were going to go to, and redesign the whole game, and go to a hub structure, and add all these elements. They also wanted us to be sure we were aging it up and making it kind of PG-13, because the decision was made to go to Xbox as the first platform. Sure. Which, hindsight is so easy and so clear. In retrospect, that really wasn't the best platform for us at the time. That was a pretty hardcore shooter audience, and they wanted to broaden their demographic, their market, and so they were excited about having us on their platform, and they offered a bunch of, marketing money in order to get an exclusive, which seemed like a good idea at the time, and Sega was really excited about it. They came to us and said, how do you feel about that? And we just said, okay, whatever you guys want. So, yeah. Anyway,
So given your choice, you would have wanted to maybe hit Nintendo or PlayStation's platform.
yeah.
Okay.
That would have been a more natural audience for us, and we never ended up getting there. I actually am not totally sorry about that now. It was painful at the time, and we actually had to shut the studio down, let everybody go, because we couldn't, we couldn't keep things going when Sega decided to pull the plug on those other platforms. But I'm really glad now because we had sort of starry eyes with the 3D at the time, and even if we had stayed on course and built the game as the sequel that we had intended, with the structure of Game 1, it still wouldn't have been as retro-y as I would like. It wouldn't have taken people back to that original experience in the way that Back in the Groove does. So, the fact that didn't end up happening sort of left the field open for us to do that now and do it in a better way, and in a way even at a time when I think there's a stronger retro impulse. Enough time has passed now that people really want to look back to their childhoods and relive it. So I think it all worked out for the best, in the long run.
Well, and I think that and Peter and Niall, you can talk to this as well if you want, but I think the state of gaming today pushes a little bit of that retro back. We have so many games that are of the same thing, loot shooters and grinding games and things like that.
You're telling me.
And after a while, people want to get back to what, and I think too, we have games that come out that have 15 gig day one patches, and games that come out broken, and games that come out that don't work the way they're supposed to. And I think a lot of people start to yearn for those days when a game came on a cartridge or a game came on a disc, and you put it in the system, and for better or for worse, it either worked or it didn't. And if it didn't work, it's because you didn't work it right. What amazed me about this, you can't see it because our channel or our show here is 720p 30 frames per second. That's how I keep it from crashing all the time. But this game runs at 60 frames per second, and it runs almost completely solid. And when I fired it up a couple of weeks, I played it either 2 days or the day before Back in the Groove launched, and I started to play it again, and I realized how smooth the controls were and how tight the controls were. It reminded me why I gave that game an 83, because well, you're right, it's not. There's elements to it that are not the original, and I do know at the time that there were some people that didn't like the new direction, but I saw this as an evolution of the genre, where you took the characters, you really did keep the essence of ToeJam and Earl and what they did and what they stood for and what they were able to do on their own power, and put them in a different world and make them do something different, and it worked for me. Running around and get money and you had all the elements that made the game so cool, the Icarus wings and the bouncy shoes and the slingshot and stuff. So it wasn't a complete departure for me. It was enough of the old with some great new that made it really interesting for me. And what was really funny is, as I fired it up, I had a save game from 2003 that was still there.
That's funny.
So, so I really enjoyed it. It was one of those things that I just I couldn't play enough of, and I will probably go back and finish this now that I ended up getting a new HDMI cable for my Xbox so that I could get it correctly connected to my TV, and I'm probably gonna go back and finish the game.
But, it's funny, watching this makes me want to do that too. When you make a game, I'm sure you know, you spend endless hours play testing it, like days, every day for years, and it's hard not to get sick of it, no matter how much you love it. By the time you release a game, you're kind of feeling like, okay, I don't want to see this for a while. But now looking at it, it does kind of take me back to that time, and there were a lot of things about it. I'm really glad they felt good to you. A lot of things about it that I loved and was proud of at the time. But I understand too that it's when you make a departure that big, both this and even Game 2, from expectations, from some things from what people had attachments to. It's disorienting or confusing for people. It almost doesn't matter how good the new game is in its own right. People want, they want a continuation of what they loved already, and so live and learn. And then there's that whole problem of sort of trying to balance what you think the game should be, and then what the people who are paying for it think it should be, because the fans don't always realize that developers don't get to always just make the decisions in the games they want to make. You're really beholding to your publisher or your investor. It's one of the nice things about crowdfunding, and one of the really wonderful things about this project was I finally got to be completely untethered and have total control. So
you made the game you wanted. And you made the game. You made the game that a lot of other people wanted. I mean, that's it. Sometimes publishers and investors, they see one thing, and I think we all know sometimes they don't see what the fans want.
Right, it's a different set of motivations, and it's understandable ones. They put in a lot of money, they have money risk, they're looking at the market and what they think sells and what they think will do well, and that's usually where they're coming at it from. I do got to say, though, for the period that Adult Swim was our publisher on this new game, they were very hands-off. They were unusual and let us kind of go where we wanted to go to, so kind of got to give them a nod for that.
Awesome.
But it's often not the case.
But they were able to get you kind of over the hump, right?
Yeah, they did. They came in at kind of a critical time. When you run a Kickstarter campaign, it's risky because you can't go back to the well for more money, and you end up having a lot of costs that are difficult to anticipate. Especially if you're running a campaign that's very heavy with physical rewards, which we did, despite being warned about that. So, you can get yourself in kind of hot water where you just don't have quite enough to get to where you need to go, and then with thousands of people waiting for you to deliver. So Adult Swim kind of came in at a time when we were not really sure how we were going to make it all work, and kind of pulled us out of the fire and gave us freedom to keep going. So big thanks to them. They were great. And then at some point they just felt like it wasn't going to work for them. Their hands were too full, and they asked me if we wanted to take it back and self-publish, and I was like, absolutely, that would be great. So, anyway, that's that story.
Oh, okay. And it makes sense. I mean, it does. So I wanted, before I go to, because I do want to ask you about Panic and Funkatron, but beforehand, the music. So that's one of the other things that, as a musician myself, I was so drawn to the music in the game from the Genesis version, and the Genesis doesn't get enough credit for its ability to create soundtracks. that is a theme song. You know, the ToeJam Jammin' is something that I would like be just at my desk at work or driving down the road and just humming to myself.
That's funny.
So who actually first created the soundtrack? I know in part 3 and I think in Back to the Groove, and I can never get his name totally right. Burke, how do you pronounce his last name?
Oh, Trishman.
Trishman, thank you.
Yeah.
So he didn't create it originally, did he? Who was the original creator of the theme?
Oh, before I answer that question, you still got Mission to Earth up on your screen there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. So the original people that made the music with me on games 1 and 2 were John Baker and Mark Miller. John Baker did most of the composition, although he worked with me. I came up with a lot of the bass lines, like for that theme that you're talking about, and a lot of the other ones where I would sing into a tape recorder and then hand this to John, and then he would listen to it and then turn it into something that actually sounded good. And then he came up with a number of them just kind of from scratch on his own. And then Mark Miller was involved too. He did a little bit of like compositional tweaking, but Mark was more technical on the technical side. He is the one that managed to make the instrumentation sound more, less tweezy and more like digital. In those days, that was really new, to have a bass actually sound like a bass and stuff like that. So Mark worked hard on that, and then in this, in game 3, that was pretty much all Burke Trishman, and that music was done mostly digitally. Burke did some performance. He plays guitar and banjo and harmonica, and but then on this latest one, I was approached. Do you want me to tell you that story? Have you?
Yeah. So they're telling me I'm a little quiet in the on the audio, so I don't know. Hopefully, you guys are able to hear me okay. If is any better. I have a mixer that I use for my microphone here, and it may be a little low. The reason I asked about Burke, and the reason I still had the Mission to Earth footage up was after I got done reviewing Mission to Earth, I sent it off to my Sega rep, and he came back and he said, "This is wonderful." I said, "We're not getting this level of detail in the review." Now, people can see it if they go to the Internet Wayback Machine because they've cached a whole bunch of our pages. So I actually do have the review available. People can see. And he said, "Is there anything I could do for you?" And I said, "Well, I've always wanted to learn how to play the theme song. I never got a chance to learn the theme. I never, I've been trying to, put it out. If whoever worked on the music could maybe give me a chord chart or something, I'd love to work on it." So then, November 8th, 2002, I get an email from Burke that said, "Hey, I've never really sat down and officially charted this out, but here's what I got." And he actually charted it out for me.
He did?
Yeah, I've got it's an email that I have kept for 16 years. I was dumbfounded. I was like, "You got to be kidding!" It was almost like saying, I was only half kidding. I really wasn't expecting someone to actually not only get with me from the court, about that, but someone who actually worked on it. So that to me was like one of my. It's like one of those things I just have in my collection. Is this email from Burke with the chords to the ToeJam and Earl jamming theme.
Well, I'm not surprised. Burke is he's one of the nicest guys ever, and
You may still have it. He CC'd you on it, by the way.
I probably do. Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's kind of a generalist, too. You know, funny thing is, I went to college with Burke in Colorado. I went to Colorado College, CC, in Colorado Springs. And Burke was in my dorm. And then years later, I was making games in an office in Novato, California. And Burke walked by. He was going into, I don't know if you know Paul Ritchie and Fred Ford. They run Toys for Bob and did Skylanders and all that. But they were in the office next door to me, and Burke was doing music and audio for their game. And he walked by, and I was like, Burke, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And ever since that day, he's done all of the audio engineering and most of the music for all my games. So
nice.
Yeah, it was really just a funny coincidence. But he's a very, very talented guy. Yeah, and like I said, he performs. We did a series, created a TV show that's on the Disney Channel too with Burke.
What?
That you might have heard of. It's called Choo Choo Soul with Genevieve.
Yes, with Genevieve. That was you?
Yeah, yeah. I wrote all the songs for that. Oh, no kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Chugga chugga,
yeah,
chugga chugga, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That was me.
Yeah, that was Choo Choo.
Yeah, that's my voice.
With Genevieve. Yeah, that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, now
yeah,
I gotta
right.
go back. Now I gotta go back and listen to it again.
You're gonna hear. It sounds very much like ToeJam and Earl the next time you listen to it. All of the original songs, you know, you got to look for when Jen is in her Choo Choo Soul conductor's outfit, because Disney did their kind of Disney thing. You know, they liked that it was so hip, and so after we did the initial run of 15 songs or so that we had created, they wanted to take that kind of hipness and bring it to you know, zippity doo dah and a spoonful of sugar, and they dressed up Jen in like Cinderella outfit and Mary Poppins, and then, you know, they did their Disney thing where they were like make this cool and make it hip and do your like cool, bring your coolness to it, but don't change anything. You know? They were like, yeah, Jen was like, can we change the tempo? No, don't change the tempo, but make it hip and wear this princess dress. So so when you look for Choo Choo Soul, just look for the ones where she's in her conductor's outfit, and you'll see her and DC, you know, he's the beatboxing, breakdancing engineer, right? So yeah, but I started off by writing all of those songs, and then worked with Burke, and then with Jen and DC to do. That was a blast. And then Genevieve. Yeah, that's how, right, Genevieve was the voice of, in Game 3, she was the voice of all the female characters in that game.
What?
And she's actually the voice, yeah, and she's the voice of Lawanda in the new game as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy connections. Isn't that wild?
That is, wow. Yep, there it is. Oh, she did the gospel singers too.
She did, yeah.
I didn't think about that.
That's how I discovered she could sing, because she was working in an insurance company on the telephones all day. That was her job, and she would sing, I guess, at nightclubs and stuff at night, kind of as a hobby. And I remember when she was doing VO for Game 3. We were in a recording session. I said to her, "Hey Jen, Burke tells me that you're a singer. That's so cool. Why don't you try singing this line of these gospel singers instead of saying it, and see how that works out?" And she belted out the most amazing gospel that we were just like, we couldn't speak for a few minutes. We were just floored, and I was like, okay, they are going to be singing everything from now on, and I'm going to go back and rewrite them so that they just sing everything, because she was so good. And then after that, that's how Choo Choo Soul started, because I wanted to do more with Jen and Burke, and yeah, funny how those things happen.
Wow. I mean, Mike. I mean, I'm. You know, none of what I am saying to you is made up. We literally watched a ton of Choo Choo Soul. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen for her voice in both 3 and Back in the Groove to see if I can pick it up.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's funny, but yeah, you'll see some similarities for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Funny.
Wow, I'm blown away. This is wild stuff. So, I do have a question from the chat room.
Yeah. Throw it at me.
Strike. He said, "Were there any present ideas you guys toyed with that didn't make it into Back in the Groove?"
That didn't make it into Back in the Groove. Oh my gosh. There were so many. It's hard to think of them though. The specific ones we had. I don't know if you know about this or whoever wrote that, but we had a forum. You know, we created a forum for our Kickstarter backers, and it was very active. There were really like 100 threads or more, and each one had this endless amount of back and forth on it, and we had so many ideas and suggestions. It was really hard to even get through them all and respond to them all. I spent a lot of time poring through them and talking with people about their ideas. A lot of the both the presents and the Earthlings that made it into Game 3 came from the backer suggestions. In fact, they weren't very few of them, didn't go through some sort of tweaking or changing, but a lot of the characters, I think the internet troll and the person on the phone, or that's texting, the texting character, and the one that's, I think the Man in Black, he came from, even the Doki Doki universe, the inspired alien, the UFO that was kind of inspired from Alien Jeff in Doki Doki universe, that was also a fan suggestion. Many of those. And so presents, same thing, the Black Friday present, which is one that you won't see in the manual, but is actually in the game. It's kind of a hidden present in a way, and it makes all of the Earthlings get angry and attack each other. That was a fan suggested present, but there was a bunch that didn't. So what didn't make it in?
He did say, he says in the chat he liked the DDU nod with the ship.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So
he caught that. That's good.
Yeah, the internet troll. Now I realize the internet troll is so funny because he's running. The fanboy. I called him the fanboy because he's running around after you sign my game.
Yep, that's the fanboy, right? Yeah, yeah. He's just kind of right. He knocks you over. He doesn't really do damage. He just gets in your way and knocks you over, and knocks stuff off of you, money and presents and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, the internet troll is a fun joke too. If you get close to him, he throws insults at you, but when you get close to him, he turns into like a 14-year-old boy and then runs away scared, shouting, "Mommy, mommy, help!" Yeah.
Oh my God! Like the cheerleaders in 3. When you hit them and they run.
Oh, the cheerleaders. Yeah, well, all of the characters run in 3 when you hit them with that. Your Funkify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. The Funk Fu. Yeah, that's right. That was. We gave you. We experimented a little bit in Game 3 with giving you sort of offensive power all the time.
Yeah.
And then sort of pulled that back out again for this new game, so that you really had to. Use presents.
Yeah, no, yeah. And that I get that. What I did, so not that I keep harping on 3. I'm sorry. But one thing I did like about that was that you made it so that you had to level it up for tougher characters. Right. Yep. So that's true. Yeah, they had kind of a shield around them if you Funk Fu wasn't strong enough. Exactly. So then you had to use your Funkify notes. No, we don't want to. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you remember a lot of details about that game. That's funny. I'm not kidding when I tell you. You must have put a lot of hours into that. That's funny. Did, and it was why when this was announced, when Back to the Groove was announced. It was a must-have, and again, I wanted to I know we could have streamed it early. We could have, I could have worked with you guys on that. But I wanted to support the studio. I wanted to support you. And so buying this game was no issue for me. None whatsoever.
Thank you.
And hopeful for the future of the series. So we skirted around Panic on Funkatron. I do want to ask you about it. I wanted to ask you how you got from, because I've also, again, you hear stories, and what you told me about 3 is a bit different than what I've heard. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad that I'm glad to hear that. When we talk about 2, it was such a heavy departure from the first game. Was that also your design, your thought, your desire, or did you want to make another one like the first one?
So we actually did start making another one like the first one, and we were about 3 or 4 months in, and we had built a fair bit. We built ice and snow, and I remember we had these giant ice crystals, and we had built these houses. They didn't have roofs, and you could go into the houses, and we had earthlings that would tend to be in the houses and be living there, and we were going to be doing caves and a bunch of other sort of new things we were just planning and starting on. We were planning on having a dog that they were going to have that would follow you around, and that's when Sega contacted us, their marketing department. And about 3 or 4 months into development was about when they were getting real sales data back on Game 1, and they were feeling like it wasn't doing as well as they had hoped. It had a very slow growth curve, Game 1. Actually, both games did. They were so off the beaten path and just kind of flat out weird that it really took playing them and word of mouth for them to spread. It wasn't the sort of thing like somebody would see it and go, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted," right? So, Sega didn't know that it was going to do okay, and they were concerned, and they came to us and said, "Hey, we think people don't get this, and if we did a side-scrolling game with bigger characters and more action, we think that people would get it better and it would sell better." I'm going to move away from. There's something a little people noisy over here.
No worries. I was wondering what that was, but I guess it's you are out in Maui, and it.
I am. Yeah, people just hanging out, and yeah. I'm upstairs in this mall looking out over the ocean, and so right now I'm out in the mall. But anyway, yeah, so they came to us and they asked us if we would be willing to take a different approach, and there was nothing at all adversarial. We felt like we wanted the game to do better, and we trusted them to make those decisions and know more about that than we did. And we were a little, felt a little bummed to have to shelf the work that we had done in our plans. And my concern initially was that we weren't going to be able to really do justice to the spirit of ToeJam and Earl. So what we said to them at the time was, let us think about it a little bit, and let us see if we can come up with a way to conceive of a side-scroller that would still feel like ToeJam and Earl. And so they said sure, and we took some time and tried to come up with some, ideas for how to explore a 2D world and how to make it a two-player cooperative world. And so a lot of the stuff you're seeing there on the screen with shaking bushes and trees and and the doorways that take you to the different, teleport you around, and all of the different types of terrain and the ways that you move, and how we dealt with two players, pushing the screen in opposite directions or teleporting to the other player. All that stuff we kind of came up with, and then went back to Sega and said, okay, we think we can do it. And the more we thought about it, there's always an upside, right? Mm-hmm. Anywhere you go. So we said, well, okay, we can show what their home planet looks like, and really develop their world and these characters that are in their world and do more storytelling this way. And so we kind of got into it, and we shifted gears and just did our best to make it feel like ToeJam and Earl.
And to a great extent that it did. They each had their different, mannerisms and stuff. And, of course, here's the dance-off that's Back in the Groove. And, of course, the Back in the Groove one, of course, is much, much better as far as trying to, this was a little rough on when you haven't done it in years. But, again, this was when I first played it. I was like, this is really cool. It was slow. It was a little slower. And then I felt like, if I wanted to go back and play the first one, because the worlds were random in the first one, you could pick the random world, I didn't feel like I was missing anything by playing this. And maybe that's why I liked it as much as I did, is I wasn't missing the first one because I still had the first one. And so, some of this where all of a sudden now you're meeting his friends, and there's a good bit of humor in it. I thought that it was a very well done game. And I do remember that it did, they did do a decent, the first two did sales really decently, and so it was good to see them at least want to continue the series, at least at the time. So,
that's true. Thanks for saying all of that. I really do appreciate that. It's and it's been fun hearing all of the feedback from the fans, especially since we started the Kickstarter and did this whole process with this new game. It's opened a big fat channel between me and the fans, and given them an opportunity to express all of their feelings about the early games and what they liked and didn't like, and which game was better and why, and all kinds of fun controversy about game 1 versus game 2, and then there are those rare people like you that actually say they love both games, and even the very few people that loved all three. So it's it's been a lot of fun to hear all that. One of the things too that's worth mentioning in talking about Panic was that one, the fellow that did all of the art and animation for this game, Kirk Henderson, is amazing. He's a very traditional, old school animator, and he did all of this on paper, and then he faxed it to us. Every single frame of art and every piece of background was done on paper and faxed, and then we would scan it and then color it in, and based on his direction and his concept art. And so big nod to Kirk. And then the person that did level design with me on this game, we hired right out of college, and his name is Evan Wells, and these days he runs a little studio called Naughty Dog, and that was Evan's first job out of school, and I loved working with him. It was me and him and Mark sitting together in an office building this game. It's very very nostalgic thinking about those days.
Well, and if you look at this, remember, I mean, obviously you remember because you designed it. The Genesis was limited in its color palette. 64 colors out of 512 palette. That was the selling point that Nintendo wanted to use with the SNES was bigger colors, things like that. But if you look at this, you can't really. This is where numbers don't always matter. This is a colorful, beautiful looking art created game, and you got it. This was indicative of what that system could do at the time, given that it was limited in its color palettes.
I was impressed, and largely because of Kirk's artistic abilities. That's really thanks to him. But yeah, you're right. It was. I think it pushed the limits of those days of visually, and I was really happy then with how it turned out. There were other games that did that too in their own right too. Echo the Dolphin was one that I loved in those days too. Yes. That I thought was really beautiful, and
I loved Echo the Dolphin as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there were others too, anyway, thanks for noticing that. I think it's very bright and colorful too. That was one of the things too that the fans really wanted and asked for, more than asked for, demanded in this new game, Back in the Groove, when we did our initial. Showed our initial prototypes on Kickstarter. A lot of the fans were saying, "Wait a second, it's not bright enough. Pump it up, more saturation. We want it, it's got to look like games 1 and 2." So we cranked it all the way up, and we were like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yep, perfect. Now you got it." We're like, "Okay." Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it. I mean, it's that green is very green.
Yeah, very glowy.
Yes. Right? and so for people that haven't seen it, so there's some of the elements of Game 2 where you had the little push button thing, and there's the meter that requires money. So you did bring money across from the first game, and then kind of expanded on it with the meters. There's your fanboy.
The second game, you mean those came from Game 2, the coin meters and the buttons.
The coin meters,
and then they were in Game 3 too.
Right, but money came from the first one.
Oh, yeah, so that's right.
Right.
So money. Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah, all of the sound effects that were not. I'm trying to think if there was anything in Game 1 that wasn't me. I think it was all me. Yeah, because we didn't have a studio, we didn't have a budget. It was all me sitting at my desk with my microphone after everybody had gone home, because I had to. Some of those sound effects were really loud and obnoxious, and I had to do it late when I wouldn't bother other people, and so yeah, like the dentist cackle and and the Cupid tra-la-la and all that stuff. Boogie boogie.
Awesome.
Mailbox.
That darn dentist.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Oh, by the way, the evil elevators. Nice touch.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, I'll tell my son Tomo. He actually. That was him. He's in college. He worked on the game with us actually last couple summers.
Wonderful.
He interned in my group, and yeah, he had no shortage of ideas and suggestions, and a number of other ones as well. But that was one that came from him, and yeah, it was a good idea. I think it's added a lot to the game.
Agreed. And you can't escape it. I did know if you see it, you can get out before it closes on you if you're fast enough.
Yeah, it's actually not hard. The times it gets you is when you take your eyes off the screen, like to turn and talk to somebody. So you can't walk into an elevator and then look over at your friend. And they hop out because they're looking at the screen, so they'll hop out, and you look back, and the doors are closing. You're like, oh no.
Right.
I'm so stupid.
So one of the chat room folks is asking a question. I think we kind of touched on it, but he did.
Sure.
He is expanding on it a little bit. So we did talk about this game being, kind of the spiritual successor to the first one. But did you guys experiment with any other styles or genres?
Oh, for presumably the question means for this game, right?
Right.
You think?
Right. Have you experimented with other? Did you look at this and go, "This is what we were going to do from day one," or did you say, "Hey, a ToeJam and Earl kart racer might be nice"?
No. I knew right from the get-go on this project that it was going to be a straight up. It's what everybody's been wanting and asking for, and what we've had a few false starts on. So it was always going to be, a remake of game 1, and then with a whole bunch of game 2 and game 3 features. That was always the plan. But in terms of the style, I didn't know what style I wanted originally, and I sort of cast it about a bit. I had a whole bunch of different concept artists who were did various takes on it and for me. And then I got really lucky, and I found like the perfect person, this young artist named Nathan Schwartz, who was straight out of the Art Academy. I actually contacted the head of the Art Academy here in San Francisco, who's a friend of a friend, and I said, hey, can you recommend somebody great? And he pointed me at Nathan, who has a real deep love of retro art, and especially like underground comics. And Nathan has this perfect quality, this whole personality is like this too, where he's kind of quirky, but also kind of sweet and warm. So his stuff is twisted, but not dark twisted, and that's what I wanted for ToeJam and Earl. And it immediately answered that question of how are we going to make something that feels like it's old, but is still fresh and new. And I didn't know how to answer that question until I actually saw Nathan's artwork. And then when I asked him to do a take on the characters and he drew them, it was immediately, oh, that's it. That's them. That's it. So everything you see in this whole game, all the characters and the design of the world and everything, that's all Nathan, power to Nathan. And then we had some other really great animators, Rick Servande and Connie Chin, who animated all of that and did wonderful work in that realm too. But it was Nathan who did the concept art.
Yeah, and it looks so good. We commented on that in the stream here, like right at the beginning. I just kept going, my gosh, this looks so good.
Good. I hope Nathan hears you say that. I'll let him know.
Yeah, give him the link to the show. I really felt like I was back in college. It's actually end of high school is when ToeJam and Earl came out. So I was actually 91. I was a senior. I was just graduate when this came out. I was graduating high school. So,
okay.
Yeah, so this got me through a lot of great times. This series. So
nice.
I'm
a little older than you are.
Well, and how much? I don't know how much time you've got. I know you're busy. But
that's okay.
I did want to ask you a bit about your programming background, because believe it or not, as I began to follow ToeJam and Earl, began to follow you, I came to find out that there are other games you had your hands in that I have played, like many of them. And when I realized that Starflight was one of them, I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same guy. Started to put all those pieces together.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, you were coming straight out of college, game programming, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I did study some programming in school. I got my degree in. Actually, a degree I made up called biolinguistics, which didn't exist in those days, and as part of that degree, I had a bunch of programming, and also, obviously linguistics and cognitive psych and animal behavior and that kind of thing. But I worked as a coder at Scripps Institute in college at UCSD before I went off to Colorado College. And flip that around. I went to CC first. And anyway, but I wasn't really a programmer. I was actually a really lame programmer. I was never very good at it. I've always been more of kind of a blue sky person. And it takes a very methodical thinker to be an excellent programmer. You have to be very structured and very detail-oriented, which I'm not. But anyway, so Starflight was my first game straight out of college. My college roommate, Alec Kercho, got involved with that project, and it was one of the very early games that Electronic Arts did, when they were just getting started.
Yep.
They were like 20 or 30 people in those days, and Trip Hawkins and Bing Gordon and Stuart Bond, they were the ones starting that company. And then Paul Ritchie, who I think I might have mentioned already with you guys, he runs Toys for Bob. He had done Archon. Did you ever hear that game?
Are you kidding? Archon and Archon 2. I played them both.
Oh,
that was
such
a crazy chess type game. I loved Archon.
Yeah, me too. Wasn't it great?
Yeah.
I love that game as well.
That should come back. That needs to come back with online gameplay. We need to find. Yeah. You know what? We need to find who owns the IP, and we need to buy that. I'll pitch in.
Okay. Well, I'm actually seeing Paul in a few days. I'll ask him. I'm sure he knows. But he was kind of like my my mentor in those days. He helped me know what to do to build my first game, Starflight. And I'm going to walk away. There's some very noisy kids over here.
It's okay.
Yeah. And so that was the first game out of school and released in 1986.
Yep.
And then Starflight 2 was when, I think that was that 90?
Starflight
91?
2 was 89.
89, that's right, 89, yeah.
Star Control 2 was 92, and I know you did some work on the Star Control series as well.
I did not much, that was all Paul and Fred. Those games are really theirs. But, we shared a suite of offices, and we always just kind of, helped each other out on each other's games. So I did a little bit of artwork for them, and I did some voicing for their game. But, all the credit for those games goes to Paul and Fred. And but I loved those days. It was really the real garage shop days of working. Nobody knew what they were doing, and everybody knew they didn't know.
Well, come on. So, we had games. EA had games like this will blast you to the past. Caveman Olympics. I remember that one too, and I'm pretty sure I remember you did work on that as well, right? You did some graphic work on that. I designed that game. That was my. That's so funny. Dynamix.
It was Stuart Bond came and asked me if I would be interested in designing an Olympics game with Caveman after I'd done Starflight, and and working with Dynamix. They were in Eugene, Oregon, and so I flew back and forth and worked with them and provided them with all the designs and kind of art directed the game. If you look at the box of that one, you'll see my picture in there. They told me when we were going to. Oh my God! Right. So look at that. You see? Do you have that? You see how I am?
I'm bringing it up. Hold on.
Okay. So they were there. So these guys are all in Oregon, right? And I'm down in California. And they said, "Hey, we want you to go take your picture for the box and look like a caveman. Everybody's going to look like a caveman. It'll be so funny." And so I was like, "Okay, great. Let's do that." And then, I'd forgot about it completely. And then when the game came out and I opened the box and I looked at it, of course, I was the only one that looked like a caveman. None of them actually did it. And I was so so annoyed at them. I was like,
"Oh, that's really, funny." Hang on, because I found the Commodore 64 cover. Give me one sec here.
No worries. I don't know if you can find the inside of the box with those photos in it, and it's no biggie. But you'd have to actually probably have the box. I don't think you'll find that online.
Yeah, you're second from the right? Is that you?
What?
With the glasses?
Sure. Yeah, that's funny.
I am looking to see if I can find any of the inside cover art, because that's funny. I looked at that, I found that, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
It was a lot of fun though, and I came up with the art style for those characters too, because I was a big Gary Larson fan. You might notice that the characters look a little bit like that. Larson-esque.
Yes.
And so that's when I was...
Here's the German inside cover.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's me looking like a caveman and all those other guys
Everybody
just doing
else
like
is in polo shirts.
Yeah. Those guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Whatever.
But this is really cool because, I mean, you know, before I get... But, and again, I'm not kidding when I say I played these games. The other one that and it wasn't... Now, this I found on a video, and I didn't realize it until I kind of watched the video and said, oh, yeah, this makes sense. I had a Menacer, you know, because I had to have a light gun because, you know, my friends had all the NES light guns, and the cartridge that came with it came with the Tomato game. And I never put 2 and 2 together on the Tomato game until I watched a video a while back on you and realized, oh yeah, the ToeJam and Earl tomatoes, and it all kind of came together.
Yeah,
it all kind of came together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was called Ready Aim Tomatoes. Yep. Yeah.
All came together.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they asked us to do that for the Menacer after we did ToeJam and Earl. I think that was after one, but before Panic.
Yeah, 1992 was the Menacer.
Okay. Yeah. So that was just a really quick... We did that really fast, and we just used assets from the game. You know, a lot of the same animations. We did a little bit of new art for it, but not much. And I remember it was just 3 months, maybe 2 or 3 months, where we put that one together. But it was a lot of fun. I remember really enjoying that. And just me and Mark did that together, and yeah, and I thought it turned out pretty good. You know, I thought, I mean, of course, it's my own game, so it's hard to. It sounds terrible saying it, but I thought it was the best one of the bundled set. You know, that came with the Menacer.
Now, you know, the Menacer itself was an interesting concept, and I know why they did it. And you know, Sega always wanted to be bigger and better than whatever Nintendo was doing. So Nintendo had the gun; they had to have a rifle. You know. And so
yeah, right. Yeah,
but these are all. I mean, I love to find out how people get to where they are, because so much of what you know, so much of that, you know, it's funny because if you really think about it, games like Starflight and you know. And that kind of thing, you know, space-oriented games, and here we are with games in space. And but I do have to ask you this, because I also saw this when you and Jason put these characters together for the first time. Were they actually what I read is that the names weren't actually ToeJam and Earl at first? Is that story accurate?
No,
okay.
It's not.
All right. So
yeah, but it did come from me.
Okay.
So I'll fess up to that. No, you know, sometimes, you know, after game comes out, you end up answering a lot of interview questions, and they ask, often the questions are the same questions over and over again. You know, how did you come up with the idea? Where did it come from?
Right.
And I remember I was in the office late one night, and I had had a long day. I was pretty tired, and I was feeling kind of punchy, and I just wanted to, I was bored, and so I just started making stuff up, you know. And I remember another question was like, how did you come up with the ideas for the presents and the Earthlings? And I said, I wrote them all on Post-it notes, and I spread them out all over the floor, and then I tossed my cat into the room, and I saw which one stuck to her feet, and those are the ones I used. And that was in that same interview. I said a bunch of other, like, totally crazy stuff. I said I used to get pissed at Mark and throw the Genesis at him. You know, every time he'd come back from the bathroom, I'd throw it at him, and it would hit the wall, and we you know, went through a lot of Genesis machines, and I don't remember what else I said in that interview. I kind of regretted it after I said it. I hit the send button, and I was like, oh no.
Well, I think
is this going to come back to haunt me? You know.
The one that I remember seeing was that the original games, the original names were ToeJam and something else.
And Whirl. ToeJam and Whirl.
ToeJam and Whirl.
Yeah. So sorry to everybody who actually believed me on that one. I'm sorry. My fault.
That is fantastic. Oh my goodness. So is Jason, is he still around? I mean, is he still doing stuff? Jason Vorsanger?
Mark Vorsanger. Yeah. I don't know why
I call him Jason. It's Mark Vorsanger. Sorry.
That's okay. Jason's a nice name. Maybe we'll call him Jason from now on.
That's all right. People always call me Mark. That's all right. I get that a lot. But is he still with you guys? Was he involved in this?
Oh, with us. That's funny. He's still with us. He's still alive. He's still with us. He is.
I apologize, Mark. I really do. Honest to God. I hope you never get to see this because I may have to bring you on to personally apologize to you.
He's the most forgiving guy ever. So fear not. Mark is a total sweetheart guy.
I loved all your games, Mark. Every one of them.
I'll make sure he knows that. He stopped doing games at least a decade ago. He got into a different line of work altogether, like counseling people and working as a coach, and he specializes in collaboration, like collaborative theory, and he gives like seminars at Stanford and stuff like that, especially for people that want to be leaders and run companies and stuff. And so he's
that's wonderful.
He's always been a real people person, and it was hard for him to sit there and just code for sometimes 14 hours a day and not be interacting at a more sort of personal and emotional level, which is really where I think his heart has always been. So he finally sort of decided it's hard to, when you've got a family and a mortgage and all of that, and you decide you want to change career paths. It's not an easy thing to do. It was really brave of him to step out and do that. But to answer your question, he and I are still great friends. Now that I'm living here in Hawaii, I don't see him very often, but we do talk all the time, and he's been kind of on the sidelines, rooting us on and cheering for, we've been sharing news with him, and as the game was getting made, he'd come over to our Berkeley office and look at the builds together and
that's
comment.
Wonderful.
And yeah.
So he had at least some cursory input.
Oh yeah. Well, he definitely. I wanted his approval. This was his baby too from the beginning, and I wanted to make him proud, and so he, and I think he's really happy with where it's come. And then whenever I get like these really great emails now from fans too, I always share them with Mark, and he's happy to hear that kind of stuff.
Well, when you talk to him, tell him he had a great impact on, my kind of, not childhood, but my kind of that era of, really getting into gaming and getting into consoles and things like that. I mean, he had a profound impact on my taste in gaming.
Okay, I'll tell. I'm seeing him next week. We're having like a team launch party for the team in Berkeley, and I'm going to see Mark there. So I'll tell him you said that.
Yeah, I mean, he really did, and I thank him for bringing, you and him for bringing ToeJam and Earl to life, because, as I had said earlier in the show, with all of those other kind of games out there where you didn't have that co-op aspect, this really set the bar, and for me anyway, because there just wasn't enough of it out there, and there was nothing like this. That was the other great thing, is there was nothing like this at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, it was that, I think that's true. It did kind of stand out, and both thematically, the fact that it was a co-op game, and then even as a roguelike, it was kind of before there were roguelikes. So I'm glad it's sort of. We'll see if people still want to play this kind of game, but indications are good so far. Hey, I got a question though. I'm just wondering if Nial or Peter, if you guys have any questions or anything you want me to answer, or any comments you want to make.
Do you think you're gonna use a crowdsource again for your next game? Kickstarter?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a hard one to answer because it's like it's so painful. I mean, there's so many good things about it and so many difficult things about it too. It's a very mixed bag. It's. I think the answer is yes, I would do it. The dream of every independent game developer is to find a wealthy benefactor that loves your work and basically just wants to give you a pile of money and let you go make the games you want to make. Right. When you do, right? That's what we all wish for. And crowdfunding is great because you do have a lot of freedom to do what you want to do, but you've got instead of having a publisher, you've got 9,000 publishers. Right? It's like everybody wants to tell you what they think it should be and what you need, and you are really beholden to them. I felt like they deserved my attention, and it's kind of a full-time job to manage all of that, all those expectations, and then there's a lot of other issues too that make it complex. But the answer is yes, I think I would. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, don't know where we might have lost him.
You scared him off again.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, he's frozen in time. Hold on. All right, hold on. We're gonna see if we can get him back. And then, Peter, you could ask him about the Game Pass thing if you want. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can get him. Greg, you still there? All right, hold on. Here, I'm gonna call him back. Sorry about that, folks. He was walking around the outside of his building and may have gotten out of his Wi-Fi zone. So, because when you're in Maui, why would you want to be in your office?
Exactly.
So.
The office is outside.
Right.
I was starting to think he was showing off.
I just wanted to see a whale jump in the background. That's what I wanted. That would have been what other podcast would have had that?
Yeah.
So while we're waiting to see if we can get Greg back, there is some small things which got alerted to my presence from Nial. Was Just Cause 4 hit Game Pass? We were talking about Game Pass.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that sounds like I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
But then again, it didn't do.
There he is.
Oh, hey there.
Well.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We got you back. No worries.
Yeah, it just dropped there for a second.
No problem at all. Welcome back.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Peter. Yeah.
And we were just talking about something going into Microsoft's Game Pass. Peter, do you want to ask him about?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Xbox Game Pass. But if you do you think that will be a good fit for your game down the road?
For Back in the Groove, I mean, I'm not super familiar, but a bit. I used to play on the Xbox a lot, and these days I mostly do my gaming on the PC and on the Switch. Every kind of as the years go by, and then more recently I was on the PS4 a lot. So I kind of move around, but I don't know. I think right now it kind of feels like our attention. We're getting a lot of good attention on the Switch, and it seems like that's that and Steam are our two strongest areas at the moment, our two strongest platforms. But that could change. Things kind of grow over time, and word spreads, and and we are a very tiny team. We've just got 2 engineers, and so right now we've kind of got our hands full scrambling to fix network bugs and a bunch of things that have kind of come in. Things that we actually, I shouldn't have missed.
like player 2 walking on air, walking in space.
No, actually, much worse.
Oh.
Things like the game network games not saving on the Xbox. We're like, oh, oops. How did we miss that
so
one?
that all right. So we just thought, you know what? But and again, I'm not kidding, and I'm not trying to cover for it, but I just thought that wasn't a feature. I thought that just wasn't a thing. I was like, hey, it's a co-op game, and we just need to start from the beginning again. So
Nice.
All right.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
So
You're going to be our new PR person.
hey, I would PR ToeJam and Earl for forever. Not to worry.
Great.
So
Great.
I am telling people on this show, I am telling you, if you are watching this show, you've got to buy this game. I mean, you gotta buy this game. If you are not watching the footage and not thinking to yourself, this is pretty cool, then you're stuck on loot shooters. You need to open it. But by the way, how did the aspect of the ghost come about? Now, I will say, if there's one thing I wasn't as thrilled about is the ghost feature, because once you become a ghost, you're kind of stuck with that for forever, and you really didn't. I'm like, okay, so what do I do? But how did that come about?
Well, it was in game 1. So if you died in game 1, you dropped down as a ghost, and you asked the other player if they would give you one of their extra lives. And if they had an extra life, they could say yes or no. And I don't know if you remember that. That caused a lot of people to beat each other over the head too, because a lot of people would say no, and then the other person would keep annoying them by asking over and over again. And then you basically just had to wait. If you had run out of all of your lives, wait until the other person could, earn an extra life and then choose to give it to you. So that seemed like something we needed to do a better job of in this game. So we decided to let you kind of hang out as a ghost. You can still ask for extra lives, and your friends can still give it to you, and you can return. But until that happens, while you're waiting for that, we thought we wanted to make that gameplay experience fun too. So ghosts can now do things. As a ghost, you can go ooh and scare Earthlings away, and you can when you do that, the bushes around you shake, and anything that's hidden in them will pop out. So you can help the other players find things, and you can bump food and presents that are on the ground. So you can either bump them towards the other player, or you can be annoying and bump them away from the other player if they're trying to pick them up. So we just wanted to make it so that you're never just sitting and waiting, with nothing to do. So that's why the ghosts are in there like that. And then we had kind of extra fun with that, so that there's conversations that you have with the ghost after they've died, and they'll talk to you as a ghost, and it's a lot of fun little surprises in there.
Yeah,
like
the advanced hyperfunk zone was also a nice touch from 2.
With
the jumps and stuff.
Right. So shout out to Kinnan Stevens, who did the engineering on the Hyperfunk Zone. He was actually a fan that approached us and said, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help you guys out on the game?" Kinnan's brother actually gave us some sound effects from his audio libraries that he had, and the Hyperfunk Zone is now quite pumped up from what it was. It's randomly generated, so it's the same within one game every time, but every time you play a game now, we randomly generate it, which we didn't do on Panic. It was always the same.
It was always the same. Once you got the pattern, you were good. I could stay in there for a good 2 or 3 minutes once I had the pattern.
Yeah. So you can still learn the pattern from within a game now, but once you start a new game, it's all new. And then we made it multiplayer, and we added multiple levels so that you could go up to 3 different sort of levels. The word level, we use that a lot, and it's kind of confusing, but different paths.
Right.
And and the top path is always the best. It always has, it doesn't have any bad stuff on it, so that's a good thing. But and we just added a whole bunch of new features to it to try to make it more fun. So, and if you get to the end of it, which is possible, Connie, our animator artist, she happened to be really good at that for whatever reason. She has great reflexes and stuff, and she got to the end, I think, more than anybody. But I think I did at least once and maybe twice. You get a special power hat that you can only get by completing the Hyperfunk Zone, and and you get an achievement and a bunch of money and stuff.
Right. And now that I think of it, what was the rationale for making the random world levels only after you get to level 10?
Unlocking the random world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back and forth on that. Initially, we were going to have start off with the random world unlocked, and then for a while you had to finish the fixed world in order to unlock random, and then we sort of pulled that back down to sort of something in between where you only had to get to level 10. The basic idea just so that it was just so that everybody would know that all of the modes were there, and we'll have sort of developed proficiency. The random, and so that we could ramp it a little better, the random world's a little harder than fixed mode world is. So, we wanted people, and tutorial mode is, of course, even easier.
Right.
So we wanted to kind of ease people into the experience and not throw too much at them all at once.
Okay.
It can be a little overwhelming, this game. If you've never played before, there's so many things in it to learn all at once.
This is true. By the way, the sunset behind you is looking gorgeous. We were still waiting for a whale to jump. I was still waiting for a whale. That way we could say we're the only shows that's on the internet where a whale jumped in the water while we were on.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna walk over there. Well, you can see this is actually a good time because it's sort of right around. Twilight is when a lot of them. I've seen a lot of activity out there.
It's got to be awesome living out there. I mean,
it is.
I watch Magnum PI and Hawaii 5-0, and so is it everything those shows show you?
Well, those are on Oahu, but I actually like Maui a lot better. Oh, good, you're going to catch a good one. See if you can.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if this is going to get too washed out for you. Can you see that?
Oh, I'm making your picture bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the camera on these things gets washed out. Lanai is the island that's over there, and there's always a beautiful sunset right behind that island. And it's Lahaina is just a really sweet town. It was like the town of the royalty way back when it was actually the Hawaiians lived here. It's kind of sad now. It's all tourists. Sadly, it's still beautiful, and there's a lot of history here that thankfully has been preserved. And of course, it's just on Oahu, I think there's 1.3 million people, and Maui is about the same size island as Oahu, and it's got about 130,000 people instead of 1.3 million. So there's 10 times the number of people on Oahu as here. So there's a lot of open space on Maui, and
What made you want to go to? What made you want to move there?
Oh, well, it's been a dream of mine for many years. It's funny. I have a tattoo. Can you see that?
Yep.
Where is that? Oh yeah.
Yeah. In case a whale jumped, I blew your picture up.
Oh, okay, great. So I got a little. It's called a honu, a little turtle tattoo, and I got that like 15 years ago. Ever since then, here in Lahaina, I look at that and I thought, someday, if I can manage it, I'm gonna, move there. I can't, I'm not like retired. I'm still working. I can't afford to just kick back, but I had an opportunity to start another little studio and a new project where I could do it from anywhere, and so I started Humannature Studios West out here, and it's worked out great. I love it. I love living here, and I got remarried a few months ago.
Wonderful! Congratulations.
Thank you. She's from Thailand, and and this is great for her too. It's actually kind of a little bit like Thailand here in Hawaii, so it's been a good sort of transitional place for her.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is like one of the best shows I've been part of. I got to say, we've had some guests on, and I love the guests we have on, and some of them come back to just talk. So I will give you what I tell everybody else. You now have the open invitation to our show. So if you're on a Friday afternoon and you're like, man, I'd love to go talk some games with some guys, you just tweet me and say, hey Mike, you got room on the show? And the answer is yes. So
all right, great.
What do you play when you're not playing ToeJam and Earl? What games does Greg Johnson play?
Oh well, these days I play I play social games and play things like what I got what's it called? Dance. It's the dancing game 2019. Forget what it's called, but anyway, I've been playing that, and I play Overcooked and Just Dance. Yeah, that's it. Just Dance.
Peter, he's right up your alley.
I played that with my daughter, and we're having a great time.
I like to do things together with my wife. I don't really want to be and play.
I think he's getting outside of that zone again.
Is he getting?
Yep.
Maybe a rail breached, and that's gonna interfere with the. No.
I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to play. I'll try to get to a better place.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate.
All right, let's see if this works better.
We appreciate you trying to get us whale footage. I appreciate that.
All right, good. Cool. And I play. What's it called? Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time Continuum. Yes. Yeah, that's a favorite of mine. I love that one.
One of the few games my wife will had played with me.
Yeah, it's a great co-op game. Really, really fun.
Yeah, that's one I wish back in the early days of the consoles, they couldn't really get the online multiplayer of that to work. I would love for an online multiplayer version of that game.
Yeah, that would be good. I'd support that for sure.
But yeah, we got it. I may yet take you up on the offer to play ToeJam and Earl.
Good. Yeah, let's do it.
Now that I know it's 4 players. So I look, I've pretty much exhausted my entire arsenal of questions for you. All
right.
I have.
Cool.
I am. This has been such a great conversation. And I really so much appreciate that you took the time with us today. I really do.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
And you are welcome back anytime you want.
Thank you.
It's funny, we do have people that do that. I've got one of our friends from Humannature Studios, the one that put out Kingdom Come Deliverance. Rick will just hit me up and be like, "Hey, Mike, you got room for me?" And he'll just come on and talk games and things like that, and hang out. And you are more than absolutely welcome to do the same. It's anytime you want.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
I got a question.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You know the way video games are gotten with online games, and do you find it hard to publish a lot of these games, especially your type of way, and story-driven games in your own way? Do you find it hard to come up to publishers and try and get them to green light it?
Are you talking about in terms of getting funded for building games?
In terms of getting funded, and do you find it, because we've heard the likes of Amy Hennig saying that it's very hard to get linear games to get funded nowadays, because they turn to face towards the online sort of
I see.
thing. So do you find it hard?
Oh, well, it's always hard to get funded as an indie developer. The game industry has changed a lot over the last 5 to 10 years. Things have shifted. It's really hard to get funded for any mid-range funded games. These days, you can get funding that's up to $500,000, or you can get funding for 10 or 20 million. But that's only, of course, if you have a successful title under your belt that's made huge dollars and a big team and a game engine. So not anybody can get that kind of money, but those are the two extremes that are getting funded by publishers these days and by investors as well. It's hard to get a couple $1 million to build a game, and
especially a new idea, especially like a new IP.
That's very true. Yeah, and when it comes to online versus local play games, it's true that a lot of people are looking to online games to make more money, but not so much to small indie developers. That nobody expects you to do that, because it's just so expensive and fraught with risk, and so it's just flat out hard for small developers to get funded. And like you said, for new IP, it's really tough out there to. And that's why so many people have turned to crowdfunding, and it's why crowdfunding's gotten so crowded now, and it's gotten really difficult to make money that way as well, just because the competition has gotten so saturated.
Yeah, I think there's too much. There's it feels almost too much online only games, and there seems to be a case where you have the likes of Anthem and all those, where they sort of add more and more stuff down the line as it goes along. But the problem about those games is you tend to fall out of it, because by the time they add more stuff to it, you just lose interest in it. So I'm surprised how these games just continue to stay on the market.
I don't know. The people that fund those games have deep pockets. You kind of have to get a game like that out at all. So, they can probably afford to keep them going once they've released it, and it's usually a part of their budget plan to have support built into the game and to have kind of a growth path. It's not like that for little indie developers, like me and the friends of mine that run small indie studios, who are on a tight budget, and you kind of you hope you hold your breath till you get to the end, and then when you get to the end, you're not even done because you're still trying to deal with bugs and stuff, and you're just kind of hope you can start generating enough revenue so that you can stay afloat to do the next one. And it's a tough
that's why
business,
a lot of people tend to go indie now. It's making it harder for
so no ToeJam and Earl loot shooter, huh?
Yeah.
ToeJam and Earl Battle Royale.
Right, there you go.
You never know. If honestly, this sounds terrible, but you go where you can go. If somebody showed up and said, "Hey, we'll pay you to do that," and that means I can keep the lights on in the studio and keep ToeJam and Earl going, then sure, maybe that's where it's going to go. But you always hope for the best. You hope that you'll get to chart your own course, and we'll see.
These guys are ripe for a kart racer, though. I mean, if I'm being honest, it's the one thing. The characters, the level, the track designs you could do, the personality. This ripe for a kart racer.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We did actually license the characters to, a number of other indie developers have approached us and asked us if they could put ToeJam and Earl into their game. And, if they're small indie devs like us, then sometimes we say yes, just because we like to support the indie dev community and get ToeJam and Earl out there, and we don't really expect to make any money off of it. One of those that's in development now is a kart racer, and we'll see when that one comes out.
Do you see this as your last ToeJam and Earl, or do you continue? You're going to try and continue it?
That's the question. We'll see. It all depends. This game is. It might very well be the last one if if it doesn't sell well enough to justify us keep going. But I'm hoping. I'm hoping that there's even more on this game in particular that we want to do. We have a list of sort of DLC, lots of modes. A lot of our fans have been asking
about DLC. I was going to ask you if you guys were thinking of DLC.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, we have a whole list of things we want to do. One of the biggest requests we're getting right now, I think the top request, is actually something we had planned to put in this game and then we cut because we couldn't get it in time, and that was an endless mode where you can just keep going and going on levels, and it just gets harder and harder, and and the basic idea is just to see how far you can get, which was really would take it way back to its rogue roots.
Right.
A lot of people have asked us for that, and we almost put that in, and then sort of not that long ago we pulled it from our to-do list because we just couldn't get it in. But we've been getting a bunch of other ideas too, a lot of really fun ideas. One of our main backers, our biggest backer actually, Justin Day from Kickstarter, just yesterday sent me a list of really fun ideas for different modes, and so we're having a lot of fun conversations about that and tracking and keeping lists of all the things we hope we can do. But we'll see. We got to fix the bugs sort of first things first, and then see if the game actually makes us enough money to let us keep going.
Well, I'll say it again. If you're watching this show, buy the game. Please buy the game.
Thanks.
Buy the game.
Yes, thank you.
So we are gonna get Peter a copy of the game, and I'm gonna show him the beauty of this.
Nice.
So and there was one other guy in the chat room. He said while we were talking about all this, he said you sold me. So Project Jeff looks like he's picking up a copy. So there's another one down the.
One more sale.
One more sale.
All right.
So, and I'm gonna continue to stream this on our channel as well. And hopefully as we can get, I really would like to stream some 4-player. So I said, I may take you up on that and get you to maybe help us out with that a little bit.
Great. I'd love that. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I can't thank you enough. This has been such a wonderful wonderful time to talk to you. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while. What you created was something that I have remembered for, the better part of 20 some odd years. And to get to talk to you today has been a real honor. It really has.
Likewise. Yeah. It's been a blast, guys.
I just looked up the release date of the first one, and I was just thinking, I was 8 when that came out. Oh my God, do I feel old now?
Yeah. Don't worry, you don't need to worry about being old.
That's right.
I'm 59. I'll be 60 in one more year. It's like.
Dude, you don't look it at all. Not even a little.
Oh, thanks.
It's that Maui sun.
I started on the Sega games, and I got past. My sister had a Master System, and she gave it to me in the end. But my first own system was the Mega Drive, and ToeJam and Earl and Golden Axe and Sonic the Hedgehog and Streets of Rage were all my type of game. All the games I used to love and play, and so it's like Echo the Dolphins and everything. And they're type of games, it was just great to see. And unfortunately, we don't see many. We pretty much see the same stuff over and over again nowadays. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's nice to see not just retro games, but all different types of small-time developers cropping up and doing their own thing.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. It's really the indie game scene where I find all the most interesting game development happens, and it's fun to just see when people step outside the box and do new things. And there used to be a lot of that, and it's coming back around to that. So
yeah, a lot of respect for indie developers for the commitment and the money, because there's so much more financial risk, especially when it's yours. I mean,
Yeah.
I did want to ask one more thing. So other than DLC and things like that, what's next for Humannature Studios?
Oh, well, it's kind of the same answer, we want to finish out this game. There's more, we want to get, if we can, get 4-player local, working on all the consoles, and some more enhancements that we'd like to do, like being able to see the level below. You can see that on the PC, but we had to optimize that out on the consoles to get the frame rate up, and we'd like to do some more work on that. And then DLC, and so maybe we carry on down the ToeJam and Earl path. We have another roguelike that we've started prototyping, and that might be something we'll do. We've also been approached by somebody who's might be interested in funding us to do a mobile version of this game. So we could do that. We're really not sure. I'm working on another project here in Hawaii with a separate team that's just getting off the ground that I I can't really talk about yet, but hopefully
okay.
I will be able to tell you about that a little farther down the road.
See, we have a reason to have you back already.
All right.
No.
Yeah.
But all right, well, it's getting upon midnight here, and I'd like to actually go. I'd actually like to go play some of this. Now that we've talked, I think I'm gonna go play some ToeJam and Earl.
It's coming up to 5.
Well, don't forget to sleep.
Yeah, well, that's what weekends are for. The oldest boy is at a retreat for the weekend, so I'll be able to sleep in the morning.
Nice.
So.
All right.
But was there anything else that for us that anything from you? We've asked a bunch of questions.
Yeah, not really. I'm really appreciative of you guys for helping me spread the word and just take trips down memory lane. It's a lot of fun for me, and I'm looking forward to talking with you more and playing the game with you and sharing news. So,
well, that would be wonderful.
That's the fun part about this. This industry has, as you've referred to, has a lot of stress. It's not an easy road, but the reason why we stick it out is for stuff like this. Being able to enjoy talking about games and playing them together and thinking about this stuff with your friends, and so this is the fun part. So thanks.
Well, it means a lot that you've enjoyed yourself on our show tonight. It's tough because we want to ask you questions because we have you, but at the same time, we didn't want it to make it just a flat out written interview. We wanted you to come and have a good time with us, and I'm glad that you did. I'm really glad you did. So
for sure.
The only other thing I will ask you before we roll out. So I have my ToeJam and Earl 3. If I send you the insert, would you sign it for me?
Oh, yeah, of course. It'll take you a little while to wait because you'll have to send it. Here.
I don't worry. I still have the disc. I could still play it, but I'll send you the insert if you would sign it for me.
Okay. Oh, and one thing maybe worth mentioning too. Anyway, I'm happy to do that. Feel free. Is we have a GDC is coming up. When is that? The 18th, I guess, to the 22nd or the 23rd. And on the 21st in Milpitas, there's a ToeJam and Earl kind of launch party event that's at a movie theater. It's open to all the fans. And if anybody wants to go to that, maybe people who are going to be at GDC anyway, you can go to our Facebook page, the ToeJam and Earl Facebook page, and you'll see information about that. It's in Milpitas.
All right.
So,
we'll tweet that out. We'll tweet that out on the Twitter feeds, the NLG Twitter feed and stuff. So we'll make sure people know about that.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome.
All right.
Alrighty.
Greg, thank you so much once again. This is good. There's no way I'm sleeping tonight. And that sunset behind you is just getting gorgeous.
You've turned Mike into a kid.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? I'm good with that. Greg, thank you so much.
All right.
And to our chat room, thank you guys for being with us tonight. Always great. Great questions, and glad to see that there are people there that are getting the game. I know a few of them already have it, so great support from there.
I already have it.
Yep. Niall, thanks for staying up again. How far ahead are you? He's behind us by 5 hours. How far ahead are you?
It's coming up to 5 right now.
Oh, so it's 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
You have some stamina now. That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right.
He was determined to be here with us tonight.
I'm determined.
So, and Peter, we'll see you next week as well. So, for everybody, thank you guys so much. We will see you next week at 9:30 p.m. for another great show. We'll have some information. Some stuff that we didn't talk about tonight because we had Greg on, but everybody have a great week, and Greg, thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thank you.
All right. We're out of here. Play on, gamers.
Take it easy.
Game on.
Bye bye.
Come on.
Fun.
Yeah.
That was great.
You ready, big girl?
Yeah, I'm ready, ToeJam.
Alright,
I gotta
let's do
rate
this.
that part. At the end. Thanks again, Mike.